What's up, Jolinator Club? Alright, so tonight I am here finally with my spoiler talk for Spider-Man Homecoming. Hopefully you guys have had the chance to see Spider-Man Homecoming by now. If you haven't, please just get out of here right now. But if you guys have seen Spider-Man Homecoming, keep watching. I'm going to be touching on things in the film that I did not touch on in my spoiler-free Spider-Man Homecoming review. And so this is not really going to be a review, this is going to be me talking about spoilers and just my thoughts on them, okay? The first thing that happens is we see Adrian Toomes, of course played by Michael Keaton, who, like I said, becomes the Vulture in my spoiler-free review. And he and his crew are just out in the city and they're like, okay, we're gonna clean up the city from property damage. What he's talking about, you know, he's going to these like sites where there were fights in the first Avengers movie, and he's like, okay, we're gonna clean all this stuff up, but then these SHIELD agents come here and they're like, no, you're not, we're gonna do it. But then after that, it just shows on the screen a film by Peter Parker, and I was like, okay, now this is gonna be interesting? When I first saw that, I was like, okay, what is this? But it's essentially Peter, like, filming his time when he was, like, with Tony Stark and, you know, his time in Civil War. I'm assuming that anybody watching this video has seen Civil War. He's, you know, talking about, you know, everything that happens, and then it goes forward in time. Oh, by the way, for those of you who know the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies, you know, like when the Marvel Studios logo comes up, it's like this really triumphant music. And recently, I believe with Doctor Strange, I could be wrong, I don't know, but they added like these new like pictures of the heroes, and it's all, and the music's all triumphant, it's all dun 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 dun, and it's really cool. If you listen closely in Spider-Man Homecoming, I was like, oh my gosh, that's the Spider-Man theme! Awesome, I love that! He tells everybody that he has an internship with Tony Stark, and he tells everybody that he knows who Spider-Man is, and then his friend Ned is like, oh my gosh, you know Spider-Man! And then, you know the scene in the trailer where he enters Ed's room in the Spider-Man outfit, and now Ned knows that he's Spider-Man, and so essentially he has to kind of keep quiet, but he asks him all these questions and stuff, so that was kind of interesting. Now, I've heard a lot of people say that Ned in this movie was the son of the Hobgoblin, and maybe we're going to see that in future movies. I don't know that that's going to happen. I mean, now, don't get me wrong, guys. I'm a huge Spider-Man fan, and I know who the Hobgoblin is. I'm just saying, if we are getting the Hobgoblin, I don't know if Ned is going to be related to him. When he's out doing this whole Spider-Man thing, you know, it's awesome. But then, you know, but really he's only doing minor things, you know, he's like stopping bank robberies, saving cats from trees, and helping people and stuff like that. He's not doing anything major. Once everybody learns that Peter knows who Spider-Man is, you know, they're like, okay, bring him to this party and, you know, have him hang out and then you'll be cool. But the problem is, he can't tell everybody that he's Spider-Man, and that is what made Peter Parker so human and relatable in this movie. There are villains that you recognize in Spider-Man lore that are in this movie, and I was like, mind blown. The first one that I caught right off the bat was the Shocker, who was kind of like this weapons dealer, and I was like, whoa, the Shocker, that's awesome. And then they mentioned the Tinkerer, who's in this. Now, you'd have to be a really hardcore Spider-Man fan to know who the Tinkerer is, and I know who he is. I'm not going to tell you too much about him because that's not really the purpose of this video. Regardless, he's in there, but, you know, the Vulture is the main bad guy. When it comes to the homecoming dance, Peter asks Liz to go to the dance with him, and then when he goes to her house, Adrian Toomes opens up the door, and I was like, oh my gosh, he's her dad! And that was just so crazy. It caught me off guard in the best way, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. He gets them to the dance, and he's like, go on in, dear, I'm gonna give Peter the dad talk. He just turns around to Peter, he's like, does she know? And I'm like, okay, this dude seriously means business. I mean, we all knew he meant business from the beginning, but he's like, if you screw up once, I'm gonna hurt everyone that you care about because you were there when Spider-Man saved that elevator and stuff like that. And so I was like, okay, this dude is just crazy. And the thing is, the job that Toomes was going to supposedly was going to be his last job. And so I was like, okay, Spider-Man has to stop him, because Peter's like, no, the weapons you're dealing are just bad. He gets stuck under this debris, like this falling roof, and then we hear Tony Stark in his head where he's like, if you're nothing without that suit, then you shouldn't have it. And that's essentially this movie's with great power comes great responsibility. Spider-Man does like this thing, he just gets out of there, and then we get the Spider-Man versus Vulture fight, and that's all cool. When it comes to a few of the reveals, for example, Michelle, played by Zendaya, when she mentions that her friends call her MJ, I was like, wait a minute, does that mean she's going to be Mary Jane Watson in future installments? I mean, that was actually my theory, that she was going to be Mary Jane, but actually her name is Michelle. And I was like, okay, this is interesting. At the same time, it's kind of mind-blowing, but, you know, I don't know. Might not happen. You know, Tony comes to Peter, and he's like, okay, I'm going to introduce the world to the newest Avenger, Spider-Man. But Peter makes an adult decision, and he says, no, I'm going to stay here for a while. That is the most adult decision that Peter Parker has ever made that I think I've ever seen. Well, maybe not the most, but, you know. Peter goes home and he finds the Spider-Man costume that Tony gave him, and now Aunt May knows that he's Spider-Man. In this movie, we have two after-credit sequences. The first one is the scene in the prison where you see the Vulture, and he's actually talking to, I'm pretty sure that was Mac Gargan, who turns out to be Scorpion, for those of you who know your Spider-Man lore. And I was like, okay, maybe we'll get Scorpion in future installments. That'd be cool. And then the second one is just hysterical. It's Captain America. Okay, in the movie, you see Captain America doing these like speeches on the TV at school where Peter's at, like in gym class and stuff like that. And in this one, he does one for you, the audience. He's like, hey, I'm going to teach you about something important. It's called patience. And he essentially just goes off how you just like wasted your whole time waiting for something, and I thought that was hysterical. In the end, guys, Spider-Man Homecoming is still the best Spider-Man film I've ever seen. I actually liked it better the second time than the first time. I love Spider-Man Homecoming. Hopefully you guys have had a chance to see it by now. If you have, post your comments down below. Tell me what you thought. You guys are the best. Thank you all so much, as always, for watching. And if you like this, like, comment, favorite, hit that subscribe button, and join the Jolinator Club. Just bump.